We are rolling.
Hello,
All right.
hello.
Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. It's Gina and Seraphina. Gina from AetherFlows podcast. And with me today is Seraphina Nightingale. She's a brilliant person, first of all, and she's a really amazing tarot card reader and a channel. And I'm sure she has many other talents, but these are the ones we will focus on today.
That was a good intro. That was solid. Also, thank you for the compliment. Very sweet.
Thank you. Of course. In my neurodivergent manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Before we started for
So,
the audience, both Gina and I were like, hey, we're very discombobulated with all of the
yeah,
energies of eclipse season and everything. So
absolutely.
bear with us. But I feel like we're there. We're there.
I feel about 88% there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about these energies. Like
Yeah.
how are they landing for you?
Um, I always get super affected by eclipse season, and I try not to like fearmonger about it because there's no shortage of people on the internet being like eclipse season is going to destroy your whole life. So I try not to
Oh, I
talk about
know.
it like that, but also
Right.
it kind of does. And I've kind of had to learn how to flow with eclipse seasons because if you try and fight them or try to, speaking of the tarot, try to figure out what's going to happen before it happens so you can prepare and make it stop and not have to learn the lesson, then everything just gets
Mhm.
10 times harder. So, eclipse seasons, especially the portal in between the two eclipses, it's been an exercise in surrender and patience and flow, and for that I'm very grateful, but it's always a little bit of a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what a delicate balance between like having it all just be intuition and flow and kind of I've heard people talk about it as like the princess syndrome where it's like, "Oh, just let the universe take care of it. I don't need to
Mhm.
do anything." And then like the white knuckle grip on your reality trying to control everything and being afraid and trying to predict and like I
Yeah.
remember a couple of years ago when I first started getting into like energy and ascension and opening up your chakras and all this stuff. And I found some tarot readers that were all about doing like political tarot, which
Mhm.
has its place definitely. And I absolutely have my people that I still watch and I love it. But I found myself like I was in a very fearful place when I first found them, and I found a lot of solace in it at first, but then I found myself kind of like getting a little too reliant on it.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that totally dovetails into what you're talking about is like relying a lot, maybe a little too much on trying to predict the future and not just like flowing with the present.
Exactly. I prefer to use, and I'm sure we'll get into this in more depth, but I prefer to use the tarot as like a telling me the story of what I'm already experiencing. So instead of like, again, I knew eclipse seasons, they're always about endings and new beginnings. And so there's this temptation of like, well, tell me what's ending. Like, tell me specifically. I want to know in explicit detail what's going to be ending. And you can always do
Yeah.
general themes, but I always prefer to kind of keep it super generic and or focus on how I can support, like how can I help the process rather than trying to like tell me exactly what's coming. I used to do that in the past. I feel like I did that one time for something that I was scared about. I was like, tell me what's going to happen. And it was a whole thing of not wanting to hear the answer. And then also there's this whole butterfly effect syndrome of like, well, was it actually going to happen or just I make it happen by thinking it was going to happen? And it's just I don't want to play with that. I don't want to play with
Yeah.
that. So I'm not gonna look. Is kind of where I've
Yeah.
landed with that.
That makes so much sense. I think like also just your mindset has so much to do with how you interpret the cards
Mhm.
and then also the cards themselves, like the cards that come out. If you're in fear, if you're in that sort of like, oh, I'm in the, or in, I'm in this bad situation and I need to find out the answer. Um, I've done it too, where it's like, just give me what I need to know for the day. And you're in kind of a funk or in kind like, what you need to work on. But then, I got, what was it? Like the 10 of swords. And then I got the 9 of swords. And then I got
Mhm.
the tower. And then I got the devil. And I'm like, how many cards are in this deck that are going to tell me the same, the
Yes.
same thing I don't want to hear, you know?
Mhm, mhm. And I also so you can have different oracle decks that have different energies to them. I have one that's really, like, shadowy. So, what I also used to
Oh,
do was I would talk about political readings. I would be like, "Tell me this person's intention," and then I would go and grab the most shadowy deck that was gonna give me an answer that was
hmm,
obviously they're up to no good because the whole deck is about people being up to no good. So that's
right.
another issue. And then you have other decks that are like, there's no negative energy, no bad answer. So you also can't. I try not to use the cards for like tell me someone's intention. I don't want to know what's going on inside someone else's head, what someone else is intending, what's going to
Right.
happen. I don't want to know none of that. That's not for me to know.
I don't want to know none of that.
No. Mm-mm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is I guess let's talk about, how did you come into using the tarot, because
Mhm.
like, you are a natural. You are so
Oh,
good
thank
at it.
you.
Like, come
Thanks.
on, you are though.
It's taken me a long time. What I will say, and this has been a hill that I will die on, and it's a new hill that I will die on, and it's changed my relationship to the tarot. It's not that the book definitions aren't important. It's just that they take a back seat to what I'm seeing
Mm,
in the moment. So the reason
mm,
I love, and I will talk about how I got started, but the reason I love the tarot is because the muscle that I'm trying to use is sight, not knowing. So for the longest time, I tend to slant towards more like type A, like facts and logic, very Andromedan of me. And
mm.
so I was like, I would do divination, but I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to know with my brain. And my guides tried, it took so long. They were like, I want you to tell me what you see, not try and figure
Mm,
out what you know. So the cards are great because there's pictures on them, right? And so you lay
right.
all of them out and you take a step back where you completely like stop trying to know, stop trying to like figure it out, don't reach for the definitions, and just what do you see, and start talking about what you see, and then you'll figure it out as you go is kind of the flow.
Huh.
And then there is a time
Okay.
and a place for the book definitions. Of course, there's some cards, and I do favor decks that are like you look at it and it means something. It's not abstract, although for some people, that works.
Mm,
Doesn't work for me so much. But there's a time and a place for the book definitions. It's just if you're someone that is very logical, you will maybe find that the book definitions are less helpful for you. And just looking at the pictures, the images, what do you feel, what do you see, and kind of stay in that realm of the intuition, that's where the magic happens. That's where you
okay.
hear your guides and your higher self, and that's where truth comes in, is when you're not reaching in the brain with logic and you're just kind of letting things flow. So
Right.
that's a new lesson I've learned, and that's radically changed how I read the cards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm,
Yeah, I've noticed that I'm kind of, for me, if I just like blurt out the very first thing that comes to mind
mhm.
with my interpretation, that usually lines up. And then also, if I feel a bunch of energy coming in as I'm like kind of doing this interpretation, I'll know that I'm right for the
Yes.
most part. Is
Yep.
if I can feel it. I'm a feeler, but not everybody is. So my okay, so this is the only deck that I have. It's called the Rainbow Heart Tarot. Woo, there
I
we
love
go.
it. Very colorful.
Oh my gosh. I did an interview with the woman who designed the deck a couple
Oh,
weeks ago. Her
nice.
name's
Nice.
Rachel, and she is, oh my god, she is a brilliant, brilliant
Mhm.
artist. And just like, we talked about her like her process and how and I guess she's had like a lifelong kind of interest in like mystical divination, oracle sort of stuff. And then um yeah, she's just I can't wait to put it up. She was so fun to talk to.
I
So
love
I'm
that.
actually, yeah, and I'm really interested in like the artist's story behind like why they designed it and like the whole process. I just
I
find it
totally agree.
fascinating.
I love
Yeah.
that. And also, speaking of guidebooks, and I know, so for the audience, this is our second time filming this because the first time we lost
Oh,
the
yeah.
the video. So I know I mentioned this in the last one, but so I work with the Light Seers Tarot is the primary one that I use by Chris Ann. The guidebook is in my background here, if you can kind of see it over my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And she made the most in-depth guidebook. It doesn't come with the deck, you have to purchase it separately, but it's like hardcover, like multiple pages for each card. It's wonderful. And I consult it regularly. Not to negate what I just said earlier about not using book definitions, but what I do is after I get the message that I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on, I'll then bring in the book for anything else that comes through. And 9 times out of 10, what usually ends up happening is she will write something in her book where I'm like, that's literally what my guides told me. And it's like, it just
Oh, okay.
confirmation from her eyes.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's great. I love the guidebook because it helps you not have to memorize the meanings as well. Anything that
Mm.
gets you out of trying to memorize and like search in the intellect, anything that helps you remove that is going to be, in my opinion, helpful when it comes to the tarot.
Mm. Okay. Do you I was just curious, do you read upside down cards or do you put them back in?
It depends. It depends what I feel in the moment. I don't make
Mm.
a super large habit. I don't do the waterfall shuffling, so I usually don't get upside down cards. The only time I read them upside down is if it flies out of the deck and it's very clearly like this is how it wants to be read. But
Mm.
also, even in the upright, I always consider what the shadow could be in the reading. So I just always incorporate the whole meaning, reversed, right side, in the reading that I'm doing and just take it all into consideration.
Mm. Okay. Well, let me see. So we were talking about the eclipse and then we started talking about how you got started with the tarot.
Mhm.
I don't think did we talk a lot about the eclipse energies? I mean, on like in depth kind of how they're affecting you?
No, we did not. Do you wanna go there?
Yeah, let's do it. I feel like it
Okay.
would be helpful. And then we can we'll put the video, I'll put the video up right away.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then it'll
Yeah,
be
and we
like
can pull
kind
cards
of,
too of because that's something we did last time was pull cards for the collective that's here watching this of any
Mhm.
messages that we have for the eclipses. But I always find that the lunar eclipse is an ending of an old cycle, and then the solar eclipse is the beginning of a new one. And one of the ones, this is, oh my God, it's so funny the way the universe works, I swear. The message that I got for my collective on the channel, on my channel, my YouTube channel, was that the main theme of the eclipse season was going to be forgiveness. And it's not something I've spoken about a lot. And it's also something where like this feels like it doesn't make sense. I mean, kind of. Forgiveness is definitely a theme of letting go and moving on, right? So it kind of does track with eclipses, but it was
Mhm.
very clear of like the main energy is the energy of forgiveness. And then all of the things that I experienced were of me needing to forgive past versions of myself. And
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've been doing the same stuff.
isn't that crazy how that happens where
Yeah.
it's just like, and it's such a difficult process to explain as well because what do you mean forgive past versions of yourself? Like what did you do wrong? It's not so much about doing anything wrong, more so I just had been reflecting on the ways that I would show up in the past that weren't spiritually authentic because there were still layers of shadow that were obscuring my vision. So again,
Mm.
that's kind of a word salad, but just basically that I was allowing past versions of me really allowed my shadow self to kind of run the show. And
Right.
it was mostly related around authentic expression was kind of how it came
Mhm.
through. For the longest time, I had this, being a YouTuber, I had this sort of belief that people were judging me, and because people were judging me, I wasn't allowed to be authentic. But the whole time,
Oh.
all that was just me being scared of other people's reactions, which is a
Mhm.
very shadowy thing, right? So there was a little bit of victim consciousness of blaming of like, oh my God, people, they're just judgmental and everyone's so divided and
Well, which is a
judgmental and
reflection of the judgments of yourself.
of the self.
Self
Exactly.
judge, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, oh my gosh, dude, the same stuff has been coming up with me. Different younger, and I've been having all these dreams about different versions, like different schools that I was in.
Mm,
And, I'll have like, I had like a kindergarten dream and then an elementary school dream and then a high school dream. And just working with like all of my inner children and different versions of myself. And I think that's the key, is the forgiveness, you forgiving yourself for self-judgments, self-rejection, self-denial, self-betrayal. And
mhm.
because this is all stuff we didn't know. We didn't know. We don't have like mystical oracle esoteric schooling.
Yeah,
We don't know this stuff. And so it's
exactly.
like we hold all these judgments from our past, and that just, it's all just density that needs to go. So,
Yes.
and
Yes, it
now's the
is.
time.
Now is the time, and it all kind of culminated for me. Another large theme besides authentic expression was, some resentment that I had for organized religion from my past,
Oh gosh,
and
so much.
I
Yes.
had been
Yep.
holding on to it, and it's one of those moments, and this has happened to me several times, and I laugh about it now because how can you not laugh about it? Where you're free, like there's no one exerting any will over you, like you're totally free of everything, but you're creating
Mhm.
your own imprisonment and just stewing and festering, and there's a lot of that needing to let go, needing to forgive, and that was kind of a central theme as well. Was not just forgiving the past experiences with religion that I had, but forgiving the version of myself that clung on to that for so long and like wouldn't let it
Mhm.
go and was causing myself pain for years and years and years, well beyond what I needed to. And it all came to a head where I came across a quote from, I got it right next to me, A Course in Miracles, which we can talk about if you're interested. But
Yes, I would love to.
and my guides were like, buy the book. And I knew it. I was like, I need to. And it arrived right after the lunar eclipse. And I was like, this is it. This is the ending of the old and starting of the new. Like this is what it is. And it was just
Awesome.
very exciting.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So A Course in Miracles, and I should also mention, I'm only 5 days into this, so I am by far not an expert. If you're looking for an
Okay.
expert, I don't know if, well, yeah, I feel like she would be okay with me saying this. Marianne Williamson is, I would consider to be an expert in A Course in Miracles.
Okay.
She's like a very well-known political figure now, but published author in A Course of
Yeah.
Miracles for a very long time. And
She was a mentor for Oprah, wasn't she?
I think so. She's
I
very
think
well
that's how she started
known
out.
for this work.
She's
Um,
she's pretty great.
Yeah, she's a great public speaker. Her books are also really good, but the course itself and what I had heard about it for so long, but I didn't get involved with it because I didn't know what it was. I thought it was
Mhm.
just like a spiritual book, someone's talking about topics and those are great, but I'm like, I don't know, I'm not in the mood for that right now. And what it
Mhm.
actually is the Bible, but like better. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
You
it's
can say
written
whatever you want.
it sounds very biblical. It's written in all the same language. It is channeled by, and I don't remember their names, but there were two professors from the 60s, very like science minded, not really like esoteric, not really spiritual, but one day they woke up and they were just getting these messages. They were hearing these voices, and it was
Oh,
Jesus.
wow.
And so it's
Okay.
the channeled messages of the esoteric Jesus from the 60s. And I would say this is like the Bible, but the mystical, metaphysical version of it, which you can
Okay.
also read the Bible that way, but it's usually not. This is much more. It's much more easily understood as a metaphysical consciousness expansion in the language of Christianity, which is
Wow.
very, it's one of those things where, and that's where I had to do all that forgiveness of like, I would not have been able to receive any of this information if I was still clinging on to the stories from my past and the pain from my past. So it was very much like an exercise of needing to have gone through what I went through forgiveness wise in order to be able to receive this information and like actually do something with it. And so yeah, it's been a journey. I'm only 5 days in, so I'm far from an
Yeah.
expert, but it's been really good so far.
That's awesome. Can you feel the energy? Like for me, when I read channeled material, I can feel all the downloads and stuff come in. Is it like
Hmm.
that for you?
Yes, I feel like my body's changing. Like my brain
Oh,
has
wow.
changed since I got this book. And it was also one of those things where the minute I bought it, I did buy it on Amazon. I'm not really proud of that so much, but I did. I don't really have stores
Forgive
near me that
yourself. Girl, forgive
That's
yourself.
true. That's true. I am kind of in the middle of nowhere, so I do give myself that excuse. But
Yeah,
anyway, as soon as
me
I
too.
pressed order on Amazon, I had this feeling of like, not only is this going to be a really exciting new adventure that I'm like fully open to, but the book itself is like spiritual technology. Like it
Mm.
just like the tarot, just like I view my tarot decks, like there's something about it that it's like this is the physical book itself is a tool to be used.
I I'm feeling so much energy coming in just as you're talking about it. And also I heard mention of that same book last week during a meditation in my regular group. I feel like I should get it too. I'll get it.
Mhm. There you
I'm gonna
go.
check it out.
What happens to a lot of people, I've heard from my limited research of this online, is they will buy the book and then not read it for a very long time and just have it sitting there. And then out of
Yeah.
nowhere, they'll be called to like commit to it. You do,
Mhm.
it's not something you can just sit down and read for hours. I can only read like 5 paragraphs a day. And even then, I'm like
Mm.
going over it over and over and like, whoa, wait, what? Like,
It's
what
so
is
mu
that?
well,
Whoa.
it's multidimensional information that's coming
Yes.
in on all different levels, and so it
Yes.
takes a while for you to integrate it, you know? Like, I do the same thing when I read channeled anything or even videos. I have to even pictures, like, for me, if I look at a picture like an old kids book picture of the pyramids of Giza, I'll just like get blasted with energy. So it's I have to be careful in like what I read and how much I read because I'll just get a migraine and like
Yep.
I need to integrate stuff that I read. So
For
yeah,
sure.
I get it. Yeah. I'm so
And
excited for you.
yeah, the way that this is laid out, there's the text and then there's also a workbook, which is just
Oh,
like
okay.
meditation exercises. And
Mm,
those are set up so you do one every day and you're not supposed to do more than one a day. So I've just been taking it. I'm basically like thinking of this like a whole year commitment, probably multiple years, but at least a whole year of just taking it really slowly and definitely integrating. This is not something of like, let me figure it out. Speaking of the same thing we were just talking about with the tarot, it's not about figuring something out. It's about like, what do you see? Like using that second sight as you're
mm.
reading it.
Speaking of second sight, I would like to talk about how you process information in that way.
Hmm.
Um, For me, because like I said earlier, I'm a feeler. I do have, like I do have a little bit some clairaudient stuff going on and I do see things, but it's more of like it's not like there's a big movie playing in the front of my third eye. It's like I'll get little flashes
Yeah,
from
mine
way
is
in the
a
back.
mine is a knowing. It's I don't see anything.
Okay.
I've stopped trying to
Oh,
like.
really?
Yeah, I mean, other than like the like what we were talking about earlier, like the occasional orb outside or like some stuff up
Mhm.
in the sky, like the aliens and stuff. When I'm channeling and getting information, sometimes I will see pictures, but it's very rare. It's mostly just like my brain opens up and like a little packet of information just gets dropped into my head, and then I'm just like trying to find words for it. It's like a knowing.
Okay.
But I'm using this is so complicated and convoluted. It's a knowing, but
I
I'm
love this
using
conversation.
I love it too. I love asking other people this question because I feel like we all can't explain it, and that's part of the beauty of it. Um, but the best I can do is it's information that I'm knowing, but I'm not knowing it with my intellect. I'm knowing it by answering the question, what do I see?
Mm.
Sorry
Okay.
if that's very unhelpful.
That's not unhelpful at all.
My guides have always said to me, they I refer to myself as a seer loosely, not like, accredited or anything, but they will
Mhm.
always say to me, "What do you see, seer?" Implying like, I don't care what you know, stop trying to figure stuff out, just like what do you see? What do you see? But not with my eyes, with my
Mhm.
like this eye.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I feel like, for me, I'll feel like like in a conversation with you, I'll be talking and all of a sudden I'll start talking really fast and blah, 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 like all this stuff just comes out and I can feel like it's almost like a stream of energy coming into my head.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm channeling. But it's nothing like you don't have to like do special toning or, like it's no crazy, weird, esoteric, mystical process that not everyone can do. Like everybody does it. We
Yes.
all do it. Um,
Yes.
but it's really interesting to learn how other people process the information because I'm having all of these newer sort of experiences and that I've never had, and it's cool to learn, like,
I think
have
it's
you had
happening
this
to
happen?
all of us. It's happening to all of us at different rates, but like everyone's abilities are expanding right now. And there's something, I mean, obviously there's something pretty large happening in our collective. And
Mm,
it's like it's happening to you while also at the same time it's a natural progression of the spiritual work that we've been doing. It's like
yeah.
a marrying of those two. Like there is effort involved in mostly just in removing blocks, not really pursuing information per se. But there is also something happening in a collective sense for sure. And it's very
Absolutely,
interesting that the
absolutely.
Course in Miracles was written in the 60s because that's obviously a time when people were experimenting with psychedelics a lot. And I've always kind
And there was a heightened polarity and
of,
lots of astrological parallels to
yes.
to right now.
Yes. I've always had this thought that, like, when one person or definitely when a group of people in a collective use psychedelics, it impacts the whole collective. So, whether or
Mm.
not you were even alive at that time, the human collective itself was impacted by the amount of psychedelics that were used at that time. And there's also, I don't know how strong the evidence is because I'm not an anthropologist, but there's like historical evidence as well that a lot of the ancient texts that were written, like the Bible and stuff, there was use of psychedelics at that time.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Mhm.
Um, I actually have some psychedelic news for you.
Oh, yeah?
I haven't really psychedelic news. I haven't really told anybody recently, but I started working with some friends doing a bunch of like inner child work,
Mhm.
and I actually started microdosing and mushrooms, and I've had migraines, chronic migraines for 15 years,
Mm,
every day
mm.
migraines, every day medication and MRIs, and not every day MRIs, but I've had MRIs and just like
Yeah.
all these different medications and like um, chiropractors and acupuncture, and like almost nothing has worked. And I started taking the stuff and they're almost gone.
Really?
Like, yeah,
Wow.
it's incredible. I can't even if I knew it was that simple, I would have done it years ago,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's been amazing.
Well, good. I'm so glad. I can't even imagine, like, regular headaches. I'm sure that's just so frustrating and, like, gets in the way of life and trying to be a human.
Exactly, and it's like, it kind of it kind of instilled this, like, "What's wrong with me?" sort of
Mm.
frequency in my field where it's like, I'm doing something wrong. What's wrong with my body? What's wrong with my spirituality? Like, just all this stuff, and yeah, so it's amazing.
Good.
I'm so glad. Yeah. So anyway,
Good. That's good.
moving on from
I feel
psychedelics.
like I could do a microdose. I mean, not that I have any idea where to get any. Maybe text me on the side where you get yours from, because we do live in the same state for the audience, which that's fun. Um, but I couldn't do like a full dose. I've known people that have done like a full like trip, and I'm like, I can't do that. The only reason I
You
say
don't
that is
have to.
because yeah, so I could do like a microdose. I couldn't do the whole thing. The only reason I say that is because, like, you know how you're kind of in control of, like, if you start thinking scary thoughts, you're gonna have a scary time. I feel like I wouldn't be able to stop myself from being like, "Ooh, what would be creepy right now?" and then just losing control and having like an awful experience.
Right. But I mean, that's kind of okay. So that's kind of one of the really great things about it is we're I've found, and I don't know if this, I think it does kind of work with everyone because the people I was working with, it's part of their whole process that they work with people. They do Reiki on people when they are like
Mm,
dosing. And they said that it relaxes all of your subtle bodies. And so it kind of makes stuff easier to dissolve and to get out and to
mm,
transmute. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'll try it. And that's what I found. I found it was so easy for me to relax. And I had that same thought too, because I've definitely done my experimenting in my younger days, and I've had some incredibly scary experiences. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. But they were like, just try a little bit and see what happens. And so I did. And yeah, I just kind of felt like the different layers kind of relax. And then I was able to kind of, it sounds weird, but I was able to just talk to my body and be like, body, can you please release whatever is, in my hip or whatever is in this
mm.
or that. And I would feel it just kind of like melt away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is so cool. And so
Yeah.
it kind of helped me form more of a relationship with my body and to
Hmm.
kind of like just like let go of the control so much and just be like, okay, let's just dump all this crap,
I love that
we'll dump
idea.
it and then
Yeah.
it just kind of melts. Yeah, it's
Almost
so
like a
cool.
like it helped with the mind-body connection is what it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. And, like,
Interesting.
my heart chakra opened up, and it was really cool.
Yeah. I
So,
love that.
neat. Yeah.
I
So
had
anyway.
a spooky experience with, sleep paralysis the other day. Actually, I had a spooky
I have
experience.
had that my entire life, on and
Yes.
off.
Yes, and
Mhm.
I used to think so let me tell you the scary story because this is wild. I've never had this happen before. First thing I wanna say, every time I get stuck in sleep paralysis, I pray the Our Father. Like, I go straight back into old Catholic Sarah. Like, I immediately
Did you go
whatever
to Catholic school?
I did. Yes, I did.
So did
Yep.
my
So
mom.
all of that is just ingrained in my brain in a level that I'll never get rid
Blech.
of. And I used to get really self-conscious about that because I would be like, I am not a Christian. Why in the middle of the night when I'm stuck in like a paralyzed state, am I praying old prayers? And my guides were finally just like, if it's working, why just use it? Like, who
Don't
cares? You know what
judge.
I mean?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So, and then I started to have some angelic energy come through, but the spooky experience was something tried to beat me back to my body. Like I
Mhm,
was out of body, I was paralyzed, and I knew in an inexplicable way that something that wasn't me was trying to beat me back into my body. It didn't
mhm.
get close. So I want to freak the audience out. I had this deep understanding that like it couldn't have possibly achieved that. There was something like watching.
They're they're
Go ahead.
ankle biters.
Okay. Okay, so you have experience
They
with this?
can't
You know
get
what they.
you.
Yeah,
Oh my
okay.
gosh, so much, so
Yeah,
much. I'll tell you about it, but yeah, they can't get
okay.
you. They're
And
just trying to scare you.
I had this theory that you know how like sometimes I don't know if you're familiar with this, but sometimes when people get sleep paralysis, they say that they see the same entity, like they call him the Hat Man, like a shadowy
Oh,
figure
yeah,
that stands in the
yep,
corner.
I used to see he didn't have a hat, but it was like, I don't know, like a shroud or something like that, yeah.
Mhm. My theory is
Mhm,
that there are guides that are guardians while we sleep that help us get back into our bodies. And so that was that energy of like it was never going to beat you back into your body, but it was just this creepy moment of like realizing what was happening of like I'm leaving and then coming back and I'm now aware that that process is happening and a little spooky of like get out of here like no. And I was
yeah.
terrified. Um Go ahead.
Well, I've heard from other people that the way that they perceive either, like, spirits or that, they're neutral, they're not necessarily angelic, they're not, demonic or whatever. They for some reason, they're black. And
Mhm.
I've seen that a lot. Like, in my 20s, there was one house in particular that me and my a bunch of friends lived in, and almost everyone saw this thing. And in this case, it was totally not nice because everyone was having these like someone sitting on top of you, stabbing you in the chest with
Mm.
a knife sort of
Yeah.
dreams, like really icky stuff. But I've also had like I'll tell everybody the experience I had the other night. It was black. The whole figure was black. And I could have seen it as being a negative thing, but I really think it was positive.
Mhm.
Um, I was out in the woods the other night and I was interacting with my star people friends and just having a great time. It was beautiful. It was super cold outside and it was about midnight. And I was looking at the stars because it was super clear. And I was just having one of those like heartfelt conversations with the woods as one does.
As one does.
Yeah. I like to go in the woods at night and have these conversations with my buds. And anyway, it was really nice and really special. And I was seeing little, the flashes in the sky communicating with me. And it was really nice. And then I drove home, got into my driveway, and I looked up at the Big Dipper and I saw a person running out of the corner of my eye. And I look and I see like an arm and an elbow and like the side of a body. And it was running that way and it was all black and it was huge and it almost looked like it was like limping or like some
Mhm.
sort of like weird sort of run, like exaggerated, and there was no fear whatsoever. I just knew. I was like, oh, it's my buddies, there
Yeah.
they are, and they
Yeah.
came to say hi. So
Mhm.
but yeah, it's weird how we interpret stuff as dark equals scary.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like, because also have this theory backed up by absolutely nothing that our physical senses are evolving. So like our eyes are slowly evolving to be able to see entities
Hmm.
that are in different dimensions. And so I would just wonder if we see like the darkened figures because we're not able to pick up on the spectrum of light that they would reflect, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So we can
that
see
totally
like the
makes sense.
outline or like the absence of light where they are, but we can't see the spectrum that they're at. I'm not
Yeah,
scientific, so I don't
because
know if that was accurate, but to something like that.
it sounds pretty close because the Sasquatch people exist in a slightly higher frequency. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a spectrum that, there's all different types, but from my understanding, from my gut intuition, they exist at a slightly higher frequency. And so they kind of have to they can shift in and out. So I
Mhm.
think I've seen stuff on video that kind of looks like wavy, sort of clear, like almost like, that movie Predator,
Yes.
how
Yep.
they do the smoking,
Mhm.
like it's like that before. And so I think they play with frequency. They're like energy masters. So I
Mm.
think I think
Love
you're
that.
onto something when you're like, yeah, I think we're just not picking up on all of it, our human
Mhm.
eyes. But yeah, let's talk about what you've seen lately because have you always been able to see stuff with your physical eyes?
No, this is new. Last night was the first time I wanna say ever that I was seeing stuff. And okay, so it's also weird I'm going to tie it into the Course in Miracles just briefly in that
Mhm.
it's changing my brain. Like the minute it showed up in my house, like my brain is different in I'm hearing things I've never heard before. My
Yep.
clarity is even though I'm exhausted and I'm not feeling well like sickness wise, I have a clarity
Mhm.
that I've never had before. I laid in bed last night from 2 until like 5:30 just channeling information to myself about the
Mhm.
nature of reality. Just sitting there, just like, and I couldn't turn it off. And
Yeah.
it was fun. Also, I was having a good time.
Do you
But
remember any of it? You should let us know. What is the nature of reality?
ugh, I can't remember what directions we took it in. I will say something that has started since I got ironically a course in miracles. I've always seen this planet as like a school. Like I really vibe
Mhm.
with the earth school thing. And so it's called A Course in Miracles. I thought that was funny. And then what has happened now is my inner dialogue is a classroom. So like there's a teacher
Oh.
me and then all of the different aspects of like my inner child, my ego, my inner critic, all my shadows, they're all students in the classroom. And I set a
Huh.
rule with all of them that they can ask any questions they want. Like there's nothing off the table, but they have to do so respectfully and they have to have a genuine willingness to learn, like a desire to learn. And
Hmm.
that's been the way that I talk to myself inside my head now. And it's been great. Like it's alleviated a lot of, especially the inner critic. My inner critic likes to be a little shady, a little sneaky. She likes to
Right.
steal other people's identity and pretend that she's somebody else from my past that's judging me and
Mhm.
condemning me, but it's just her. So now she has to be herself and like ask the question instead of pretending to be somebody else. And it's been pretty significantly changing for my inner dialogue.
That's so weird because I've been having so many school dreams too.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
feel like I'm working with like younger versions of myself.
Yeah.
Kind of like almost like flipping the script, you know, like I remember in elementary school, I hated it. I did not like anything about it. I couldn't understand the information. I was afraid of all the other kids.
Mhm.
Like I was so shut down. But then I had this dream the other night that I was in that same school and like it was like me talking to my younger me and just being so I was so happy. I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm back here. I love this place." And so
Mhm.
I feel like it was almost like rewriting the timeline, kind of like,
Yeah.
"Oh, actually this was really cool and this was and I had a great time."
I
Yeah.
love
So
that.
maybe that parallels what you're going through. But
Yeah.
anyway, the seeing stuff, do tell.
Yes. Okay. So I was laying in bed, channeling the mysteries of the earth, talking to Jesus as one does.
Love
Um,
that.
and
I love
all of
it.
a sudden, I this only and this goes to what you were saying of this only I only saw it when I was relaxed. Anytime I would try to be like, what was that? And try to focus, I would lose it. But anytime I was relaxed and just laying there, it started with I was seeing like lines in my bedroom, like
Oh yeah, the
lines of
grids.
like it's darker in some spots, and then again the
Yep.
minute I would focus it was like it wasn't there. And then and I should also mention I wasn't like almost asleep. I was kind of in between, but I was more awake than I was asleep. um
Mm.
and then I started seeing flashing lights outside, not like huge dramatic ones, but there was one that was pretty significant. Out of like the corner of my eye there was like a orb like light that just flew in front of my window. And again, it was one of those things where like I told Gina before we started filming, I was like, I always thought if I saw something like that, I would shoot out of bed and be like, "What was that?" and go like run around and grab my and it was like I was the most calm, like, "Oh, a light. Yes, of course, as one does." And I didn't even explore it. I did. Oh, yep, it's out there. All right. I did for a minute sit there and go like, is it going to come back? And then immediately I was just like, whatever. Like just as one
Mm.
does. There's just orbs that fly by outside. No big deal.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why I've only taken a couple of pictures of like prints and stuff like that. And I did do some audio recordings in my house in the
Mhm.
beginning and I got some stuff and it was fun, but it's like I don't want to have this relationship of me like asking them to like, do your tricks. Come on.
Yeah.
Give me some more prints, give me some more of this and that. And when I see stuff outside, I feel like it's special, it's
Mhm.
personal. It's
Mhm.
your family communicating with you. It's not like I'm not gonna get out my camera and be like, "Hey, guys, I'm
Yeah.
filming this," and then I'm gonna put it on social media. Like, it's for me, and, yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it like that because
Yeah.
it
I love
is.
that.
It is
Yeah.
special.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's
They're my
also
fam.
it's like you can't see it if you're in that state of consciousness, like in that transactional, like I want proof. If you're setting out to do this because you want to prove it to others, like best of luck to you. It's not going to happen. I say that as someone that has tried
Right.
that a lot. There are so many times where I'm like, just give me something, just so my husband believes everything that I say, and it's like, nope, we're not doing it. I
Guess what?
refuse.
You'll never be able to convince
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
I've brought Elena, my wife, I brought her outside and I was like, "See that light? See that big ass light right there? It's gonna turn right. It's gonna blink 3 times and fade out."
Mhm.
And it did. And she's like, "It's a satellite." Walks back in the house. You're like, "What what do I need to do?"
I know.
I first started seeing those prints out with her in the middle of like January in the snow, in the woods, little tiny human bare footprints. And she's like, what? I don't see a
Mhm.
problem with this. I'm like, you
Mhm.
don't think this is weird? She's
Yeah.
like, whatever. It's almost like she couldn't process it,
Yep.
you know?
I've always had that
It's
belief of
crazy.
like, because you know how some people say like, not to derail the conversation too much, but like, oh, the elites are like, they know about higher states of consciousness and they're like doing all this dark magic, and like
The
there's
puppet
something,
masters.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's something, and I could be wrong, but the more I sorry, the more I experience this, but also study at the same time, the more I realize like you can't misuse spiritual truth. Like
Mm-mm.
if you're misusing it, it's no longer true. Like the minute you're in that state of like, I want to control, I want to dominate, I want to, my will be done, you're not in the truth. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
you can't actually use the highest, maybe lower forms of consciousness, but you can't use actual spiritual truth in a malicious way, because the minute you do, it's no longer true.
Well, my mentor Aisha, she taught me that it's a really great meditation. I'll tell it to you later, that will protect you from anything, really. Those little ankle biters trying to, you
Hmm.
know, get you scared. Once you connect to the all that is, the power of the universe, they can't touch you. It's an
Yeah.
ocean of the most powerful, highest form of benevolence there is. They
Hmm.
can't touch that. It's
Hmm.
like unscrew aroundable with,
Yeah.
is
The
that a
line
term?
in, I'm going to turn into one of those people that's like, according to the Bible, but I'm going to be saying A Course in Miracles. That Marianne Williams
Yeah.
says that a lot. She's like, A Course in Miracles says, and it used to bother me, but now I'm only 5 days in and I'm already doing it. So I can only imagine. But the opening line, the line that made me buy this book and how it is summarized, and let me pull it up. Otherwise I'm going to, even though it's 2 sentences long, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists.
Hmm.
I read that and I was like, yes. But the reason that applies to what you were saying is like, if it can be threatened, it's not real. Like anything that anyone would do that's like malicious and like, ooh, pulling, they're doing it in the illusion. So if you're able to
Mm-hmm.
separate
Yep.
yourself from the illusion, you're free. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing that can be
You're
done.
free. Yeah. If you are love, you
Hmm.
nothing can get you,
Yes.
because
Hmm.
you're love and everything is made of love. Once
Hmm.
you boil it all down, once you
Hmm.
zoom out as far as you can, it's like there's nothing but love, and everything else is an illusion.
Yes.
It's all distortion. It's all just distortion. I think
Hmm.
that's really the name of the game, is realizing that we are the energy that we are made of, and everything is made of is love. And so there's no point in polarity and distortion and strife. But
Yep.
see if we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's things are changing. The I saw what? No, what?
You sounded very sad for a second. I don't know,
No,
man.
no, no, no. No, I'm very optimistic. I will say I
Yeah.
don't know how I feel about this, but I saw people were saying that the solstice or the solstice that just
Equinox.
happened, equinox, thank you. That just
Yep.
happened was the end of the Kali Yuga cycle. Are you familiar with that at all?
I am. It's Vedic astrology, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like
It's
the very lowest point
mhm.
in the like 25,000 year cycle.
Hmm. Yeah. So the theory is that we're moving out of that now. And I don't know. I don't know if you can ever fully know like the exact moment in history when something happens. But based on what I think it was like astrology and astrological information that was getting people to that point. And the older I get, the more I'm like, astrology is real. Like I've heard
Oh
too many
yeah.
things at this point. It's so real. I will never forget when one of my favorite astrologers, Steve Judd, the day or two before the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, he said, now Trump's going to have to be careful about potential
Yeah.
head injuries.
Yep. That's exactly what Hogarth said. Hogarth's global astrology. He's
Yeah.
a Vedic astrologer too, because it was something about like Pluto in Rahu or something like
Yeah.
that, where
Something like that.
it was like, it literally meant like decapitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. Isn't that nuts?
I like, again, it's one of those things of like, you'll never get direct proof, but like, that's very close to direct proof. Ever since then, I'm like, you know what? I'm just rolling with astrology as though it is literally like the weather report.
Hmm. Right.
I forget where
Yeah.
I was going with
I
that,
do.
but
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I forgot where I was going.
Well, I was just gonna say, I do pay attention to the planetary alignments.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I go in between kind of tropic and Vedic astrology, and then uh I just kind of flip back and forth. But I don't quite study it or like rely on it so much as like this is a cold hard fact. I'm just like, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what happens," you know.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
and then
The other thing I've
yeah.
had to get really good at is not overwhelming myself with information. So, and
Mhm.
I had this happen where for the longest time, talk about like me falling victim to the illusion. I was there was a time where I would just scroll through social media constantly, and there were so many people that would give like their like energy updates and like astrology updates, and I was just like, there's too much information, and my guides were like, then turn your phone off. Like, and I got into this state of like, people just need to stop talking about stuff because I'm overwhelmed, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, what? So I've had to
Right.
get good at there are a few people that I listen to that do astrology that I listen to weekly, but if I'm already like there's too much information up here, I'm like, you know what? Not this week. And
Mm,
you need to be intentional. And I feel this way about all spiritual content of like too much up here, give it a rest. Like take a day,
mm.
Otherwise you
Yeah.
will overwhelm yourself.
Do you do you watch the news? Are you a news watcher?
I tr- there's
I'm
a
just
you
curious.
there's a YouTube channel called Breaking Points on YouTube.
Mm,
YouTube channels are on YouTube, and they do unbiased news. They've gotten worse over time. They started off pretty good, but I just can't do it, man. I tried to watch Russell Brand for a while. He lost me. It's the people that talk about the
they all
news
have an
specifically.
agenda. Every
It's
single
yeah,
every single outlet
it's
has an
too
agenda.
such an agenda. It's too sometimes it's okay if I go into it, I'm like, I know their agenda and I'm just curious, like what's their opinion on this? But it gets too, for lack of a better word, low consciousness too quickly. It descends
Yeah.
into like squabbling and gossip and drama like almost immediately. They'll read the headline and then the next words out of their mouth is like, am I in high school? Like, what are we doing here? So I
Yeah.
can't do it as much. I think I'll get my news from just kind of like passively scrolling and seeing what people are
Yeah.
talking about, but I can't actually watch like a whole segment on what's going on.
I honestly, I haven't watched the news in years, and
Yeah.
I feel great.
Yeah, probably I was just gonna say
No,
good on you.
no. Well, I mean, I don't wanna do this, like, put my head in the sand, but and so I learn about stuff through osmosis pretty much, like, through my wife or through, like, my friends' channels on YouTube. I'll learn
Mhm.
about the big stuff, but, like or, I mean, I I actually watch local news.
Mhm. Mhm.
In my teeny tiny little tiny town, I
Yeah.
watch the local news, and it's so cute, and I love it, and, like,
Yeah.
it makes me actually feel good,
Mhm.
which is
Well, because
strange.
also the local news, I feel like is people that like just people from your town that are like, I like
Mhm.
talking about this stuff, and so it's got that like passion and charm to it.
Well, and also I feel like focusing more on my community, like,
Mhm.
kind of making things not quite so global and so charged,
Yeah.
has been a big help. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Um, so with that, do you think should we try some cards?
Yeah, let's do it.
Speaking about, like, politics and
Mhm.
the people,
The
you know,
people.
all that good stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna do the cards. Do you mind?
Yeah, whatever you wanna do.
Okay, let's see. I'll be the question thinker upper.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna grab so this is an oracle deck. It's called the Citadel Oracle, and it's got, like it's a good archetypes deck. So if I don't know where to
Hmm,
start or I'm just like, "What do you guys wanna talk about?" I'll usually start with one of these
okay.
and just see because it's a good like, it'll start the story. Ooh, interesting.
Oh, I can feel the energy come in already.
So I got the tailor, which is attention to detail and pride, and then the merchant, which is self worth and trade, which
Oh.
is so this is giving me like immediately economy vibes, which is
Mm,
not my usual, not my usual subject matter, but also self-worth and pride. Now that's taking me in a totally different direction. Hold on. Self-worth and pride. Sort of the line between those two. Hmm. Because we were also wondering if there was anything that wanted to come through for eclipse season. And that's interesting. Maybe an end to the shadow side of pride, this sort of egoic focus, and moving into more energy of self-worth. There's something there.
I feel that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that was something I was really thinking a lot about this morning in my meditation was, and it was in regards to like moving out into my healing practice and my kind of my what I feel at this time is my purpose, and kind of getting out of the 3D job that I feel has been I've been playing it small for way too long.
Yes.
You know. So like getting out of that into like, actually, I'm this big, this gigantic fractal of source. I don't need to play small anymore, you know?
And
It's walking through the door.
It's a confidence thing. It's like a I believe in myself kind of thing. And also there's something that's coming through of like it's not about me per se. Like the energy of self-worth is like I'm attached to something even bigger than just the limited perspective of me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've always had this feeling of like we all want to live in a society where most people are confident and most people believe in themselves. And we're definitely nowhere near that right now. Like that's kind of the name of the game for most of us. But that is, if we just woke up tomorrow in a world where most people had a strong sense of self-worth, a lot of the problems that we're facing would be dissolved because we would all kind of step up into that energy of leadership and feel capable of solving a lot of the problems that we're facing.
Exactly. And like, and we wouldn't be focusing on such trivial things like trans people. That's none of my business.
Yes.
That's outside focus. That's not inward. You know, everything is so external.
Everything is so external. There's also just this I hit like a wall politically where I was like, I don't want to talk about what anyone else is doing. Why would I care about that? Like that's such a weird thing, like formulating opinions, especially about stuff that it's like it's not stuff where we're commonly interacting with each other. Like obviously conversations about war or the economy or things like that where it's like we're all being impacted, fine, sure. But if it's like who someone's marrying or what they look like or what they call themselves, I couldn't care less, genuinely. And it's so weird that we had that culture, especially in like the 2020 zone of like, but you have to decide, like you have to have an opinion. No, I don't.
It was, I mean, it big time kind of infected the spiritual community too. And I had to stop being friends with a few people who are like, oh no, trans people are not going to ascend. They will not, gay people will not ascend. It's male, female, divine feminine, divine masculine. And it's like, you're so,
it's illusion.
You're so far off from unity consciousness. Do you even realize?
Yeah. The other metaphor, I guess, that my guides have been giving me is that, so one thing that we're all kind of waking up to is that our reality is multidimensional, right? So basically everyone is in their own little sphere of reality and we're all just kind of creating our own, we're making it up as we go. And then there's crossover in similarities and proximity and whatnot. But when we come across something like that, of like someone that has a crazy out there belief, I used to get really upset about that. Be like, how dare you believe that? But now the way I interact with it is like, that's just a different dimension. They're in a different dimension. Do I want to be a part of that? Yes or no? And that's it. It's a very neutral experience. I saw a video of someone yesterday saying that, you can't reach enlightenment unless you're a vegan. And I used to be a vegan for a very long time, never went down that direction, but I used to get offended by stuff like that because I'm like, how dare you tell people there's this rule? But all that is someone that lives in a dimension where that's a rule of their dimension. And then I decide do I want to be in that dimension or not? And if the answer is no, that's fine. Then I just stay in
Yeah.
mine and we just move on. And
Exactly.
it's like I don't need to get personally offended when people have a belief that I don't agree with, because it's not impacting me. Like there's
I love
nothing,
that.
there's literally a boundary of reality. Again, the Course in Miracles states nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. So if it can be threatened, it's not real.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's this very neutral, just like the little orbs that we're all in, the little dimensions that we're all in. We just pass right by each other. No big deal. No harm, no foul.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One thing, okay, so I want to talk about this. You did a video on what's his name? RFK.
Mm-hmm.
Is that and
Yes.
whoo, doggy, I got a little bit triggered.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, go for it.
And it brought up some shadow gold,
Mhm,
I'm telling you. All about judgments and judging other people and
mhm.
who's right and who's wrong. And I thought I had it, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm so neutral." And then you put that video up and I got about 3 minutes in and I was like, "Yeah, but this guy. Yeah, but."
Mhm,
And I had to turn it off for a minute and be like, "Hey, cool down. Just listen to her. Listen what she's got to say. Don't go spiraling off into like, oh, how can somebody blah 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 blah." All these like they were just judgment loops basically.
yeah,
Like, oh,
yeah,
this person thinks blah blah blah. And so I listened to it a little bit more and you really did have a point that one great I am going to say this, one great quality that RFK has is his conviction.
mhm,
Yeah. He has
yeah,
very strong convictions, and that's a good lesson. It's a good
mhm.
lesson to learn
Well, thank you for
because
sharing that. I appreciate your
of
vulnerability. I know
course.
that's
Yeah.
not easy, and when I do those videos where I look at them as archetypes. The way the information comes to me from my guides and the way that my guides have kind of taken me is, imagine you're reading a story. And so
Mhm,
there's two different conversations. There's the reality of what's happening according to our experience with it. But anyway, there's the reality of what's happening, and then there's the story that we could tell around what's happening. So when I
mhm,
do those archetype videos, those shadow work videos, it's about the story, and so you fully have to be able to remove yourself from the reality of what you're experiencing and what the country's
mhm.
experiencing, and just look
Right.
at it as though you're reading a storybook. And it's not easy. They're not easy to do, and I'm sure they're not easy to listen to and receive. So that's awesome that
But
you,
that's the kind of stuff we need. We
yeah.
don't need any more like and I'm completely not dismissing, like, Reiki or angel oracle
Hmm.
cards or anything like that. I'm totally not because it's all super valid. But like we need some cold hard reality checks and we need
Hmm.
to start doing some shadow work because
Yeah.
we're not going to get anywhere otherwise if we don't look inward and look at our own prejudices and our own shadow and realize that everything on the external is a reflection of ourselves. Like within my work, I have coworkers that trigger the heck out of me and I have to realize that there is a part of me within myself that resonates with that. And that's why it triggers me.
Hmm.
And then I have to accept that and love it and transmute it. And that's our life's work is shadow
Yes.
work. I mean, that's a
Hmm.
lifelong thing. So if we don't start doing that, it's like you can try to get as high vibrational and as vegan as you want, but it's not going to get you, it's not
Yeah.
going to get you very far.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think what can help is when we deconstruct shame. So a big one that it prevents people from doing shadow work is they don't want to be the bad guy, or like also it comes from childhood, right? Like you were the
or
bad
they think
guy,
they are the
you
bad
were
guy all the
blamed.
time.
Right, exactly. So then you become defensive of like, well, listen, I don't want to admit fault of like, no, I'm right. This person is bad. I'm justified in why I believe it. There's nothing deeper that I need to look at because they're bad. And you're just trying to manipulate me by trying to get me to do shadow work because it's not actually about that. And it's defensiveness because you don't want to feel like the bad guy. So if we can remove that of like, again, Earth School, neutral territory, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It doesn't matter who's the good guy, the bad guy. This is lesson learning. This is diving into the
Mhm.
truth. If we can do that, and then the other thing is controversial, kind of treat it like a game a little bit. My therapist actually taught me that. So it's
Yeah.
scientific, not spiritual, but he was
Mine
like,
too.
you can be excited to be triggered. And I was like, I can, you're right, I can. And that was totally game changing.
Yeah, just
Because
picture like them or hear the Mario Brothers like doo 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 sort of
yes. Hmm.
sound in
Hmm.
your head when you see more shadow. Be like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. Yes. And it
Yeah.
has to be self-led and self-directed. So, when I talk about shadow work, I'm hoping to help, but it's not, I must prove to Sarah or I owe Sarah an explanation. It needs to be self-directed. It can't be someone else told me I have this shadow, so it has to come from you leading you. Otherwise, it feels like an attack or it feels like you're
Mm,
doing it to prove yourself to somebody else. No, I am a good person. I am doing the shadow work. Here's why. It has to be for you and led by you.
mm. In my meditation group that I have, I heard the term or the phrase a little while ago that was kind of triggering that was like, you don't need to be good to deserve love. And I
Mhm,
was like, what?
mhm. Yes.
And that turned to a lot of shadow work. Like, you don't need to be good because you are love. Everyone deserves love.
Mhm,
Everyone,
mhm.
even RFK,
Yes.
even people you think are despicable.
Mhm,
Everyone, because we're all made of the same thing.
mhm.
Yeah. So
And
I haven't
also
watched.
oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say extending that love, this talk about a paradigm shift. Extending that love isn't for the other person, it's for you so you can be free. The other person will
Mhm,
also benefit, the whole world will. It'll fix a lot of our problems. But the reason if you're struggling with especially like forgiveness, the reason you do forgiveness, the reason you extend love is so you can be free. It's a very
mhm.
selfish thing in all honesty,
Well, selfish, if we are
in a good
all
way.
one, we're all
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
yeah, it's all for the one. So, I mean,
Mhm.
selfish you could flip it and be like, well, selfish is actually pretty cool. I haven't watched the Elon Musk one. I really want to. I'm interested to see what you come up with.
Mhm. Yeah, though that was interesting. The cards were I led out the other thing and not to like deflect responsibility, but I do let the cards lead me. So especially with the archetypes, I'm like just tell me what you want and they're good
Mhm,
archetypes and there's bad ones. And so that one was interesting. I think I did two on him. There was an email that he had sent out that was like prove your worth to me to all the federal employees. So I did a deep dive into like the shadow of that energy of like are you good enough? Do you need to prove your worth? So it's fun.
mhm,
It's fun to look at those things and um just like take them from different angles. It's also another aspect of the multi-dimensional principle of like you can go into someone else's dimension and reality and just witness. So I do that with the
mm,
videos a lot of like, well, let me grab the conservative reality and just jump into it for a minute and look around and see what I see and pull shadows out of it. And then let me go back and jump into the liberal little bubble and figure out what shadows are in there and then pull it out. And all the while still maintaining who I am and not like identifying with either one and just out of curiosity, like, what do I see when I
mhm.
step into this reality?
Oh my gosh, that
Hmm.
is intense. I totally have to
Hmm.
watch some more of those.
Hmm. Yeah, I need to do
Ugh,
more. It's been a little while. I needed to take a little bit of a break from everything that's going on. And my guides were
yeah,
very specific of like, we're not going to just do everything. It's got to be something where there's value for us to talk about it.
mhm,
So we'll see. But they are
yeah.
fun to do.
I could see having to take a break though. I mean, that's
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Ugh. Yeah. Well, let's see. I think I interrupted us playing with the cards or um is it respectful to say playing with the
Oh, yeah,
cards?
for sure. Mhm.
Is it?
Mhm.
Okay. People have so many different ways that they do it. All right, I'll pull a card.
Okay.
What should we ask?
Mm. Let's ask how can we as a collective help to facilitate our shadow work process more?
Oh, yes. Okay. I don't know why I close my eyes while I do this. But anyway, what do I
Oh my God, I love it. I love when I get the
what?
cards and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the answer to the question. First one I got is the card of the lovers, which is
Oh, okay.
So the answer here is see shadow work as self-liberation. I always read the Lover's card as like making the choice to break yourself free and to liberate yourself. And that is like the reframe that we need to do around shadow work right now is that you don't do it to be a good person. You don't do it to be responsible. You don't do it because you owe it to somebody else. You don't do it because the world needs you to do it. So you fix all the, you do it to break yourself free. That's why you do it. It's an exercise in self-love. Also, it reminds me, did you watch Severance?
Oh yeah. Oh my
Okay.
God.
Thank
Love
God.
that. Did you see the
Thank God.
last episode?
Yes. So the last
where he
episode.
was talking to his innie
Yes. Yes.
in the darkness?
Yes.
I almost started crying, and I
I
had to
know.
sit there. I had to tell my wife to pause, and I told her because she was like, "Have you ever spoken to someone? Like, have you ever spoken to yourself and had like an answer that you didn't expect?" And I was like, "All the time."
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
paused, and I was like, this right here is the work that I've been doing for
Mhm.
almost a year.
Yes.
Is I'll sit there and I'll talk to other aspects, and it's incredible. And she was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool."
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, what were you gonna say about
So,
Severance?
major spoiler alert for the audience. I won't go into too much detail,
Oh,
but obviously the last scene of the last episode is where Innie Mark is like, "Screw you, Outie Mark. I'm doing what I want to do. I don't trust you." Like basically choosing himself.
yep.
And the way and there's a lot of different layers, but one of the ways I interpreted that in a spiritual lens is personal preference. I prefer to work with my ego instead of trying to kill the ego because
Never,
when
never. Oh, that
when
hurt me just
I
saying
know,
that.
right? And also I want
Yeesh.
to say sometimes I think people use the word ego when they mean shadow because there are
Mhm.
shadows that are lying to you and manipulating you, and those in a way you can view yourself as fighting them. Again, I still don't find that particularly helpful, but the reason I view again shadow work as I'm doing this to liberate you. I'm not doing this to
Mhm.
blame you. I'm not doing this to get rid of you. I'm doing this to break us free together. Very any Mark situation. Because if you don't, your ego is going to view your spiritual practice as dangerous and it's going to
Yep.
fight you. So it's
Yep.
when the guides say shadow work is about self liberation, the point of that is so your shadow is like, okay, cool. I won't fight you because I also
Mhm.
want to be free. All of the parts of you
Yeah.
want to be free. They don't want to be fought with. They don't want to be killed. They want to come with you and break free. So
Yep.
that's why that's like the main thing that came through in
I
answering that
love that.
question. And I love that too.
Did you have any other cards with that?
I did. So I have the King of Swords and Eight of Pentacles, which is very much this is a very like the way you do your shadow work is very like not a very emotionally attached way. It's a very like studying, pragmatic, looking at it. The way my guides sometimes refer to it is like it's zeros and ones. It's just data.
Mhm.
Like you're just looking at
Okay.
data. And that is, although there is a very deep emotional component and like felt body work and like needing to move emotions and energy through you, there is also a component of shadow work that is more logical and more cerebral. It's all of it. All of it's involved.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's kind of
and we're doing oh, I'm sorry to
no,
interrupt.
no, no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and most of us are doing collective shadow work at the same
Hmm.
time. So we are transmuting huge amounts of shadow that hardly any of it is ours. So we
Yes.
have these, we're surfing these big waves and we're like feeling like, kind of like a Gatorade bottle in the ocean, just being like tossed and turned about.
Yeah.
And like, just keeping it in mind that we are transmuting for the entire collective is also kind of
Hmm.
it's helpful, I would say.
Yes, I totally agree. And also where this archetype of the King of Swords can be helpful is and with the like the logical pragmatic, it's like when that part of you kind of arises and goes, "Oh my God, I have all these shadows and how am I going to get through all of this?" And like it just take one at a time as it comes up in front of you.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it, don't overanalyze it, just be in the moment, work with what's
Yeah.
there. And a little bit of like don't identify with the shadows. Like it's again it's just data, it's just zeros and ones, it's just the
Yeah.
logical conclusion of the things that you experienced. Yes, emotions need to be felt and purged, but you don't need to be like, and that's me, that's who I am. It's not who you are, it's just an
Yeah.
experience.
Exactly. Don't judge the judger.
Yes. Yep.
um I got some cards. You want to see them?
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, let me put them up. I got whoop these two.
Oh, I love the artwork.
I know, isn't it gorgeous? Here, let me try to get it.
Is that the Four
She's
of Swords? Yeah. Yep.
yep, Four of
Mhm.
Swords and the Ace of Wands, kind of similar to what you had.
Mhm.
Just going inward and doing the work will kind of set you free.
Mhm.
I mean, that's kind of what I got.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got. Going in, uh-oh, my phone's going. Oopsies. Sorry about that. But yeah, I love how simplistic, well, I don't want to say simplistic because there's a lot to these cards, but they're just
Mhm.
like the artwork is so gorgeous.
I really
And
that
there's all
Four of
these,
Swords, I love that in the context of this question too, because it's a little bit of like protection, right? Of like you have your armor and you're in your sort of like
right.
box, and it's almost like this idea of spiritual protection, spiritual hygiene, right? That's another reason to do shadow work is
Hmm.
the self-protection component of it.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to tell you, by the way, do you have a protocol when you go to sleep of like shielding or anything like that?
I'm so bad at that. I should.
All you have to
After
do, call
everything
in
I've
your
given.
teams. Just call in your
Yeah.
security team because you have a
Okay.
security team and just
Yeah.
ask them to, protect you.
Yeah.
That's
I do
that's
need to
all
do
I
that.
do.
Mhm. I
And
what
I've
I
noticed we
A
keep
difference? No, no,
interrupting
no,
each
no, no.
other.
You're good. You're good. We first of all, we've been talking for a while, and both of us started this being like, "I'm exhausted," so we're
I
doing
know, now
good.
I'm all energized.
Mhm.
I call in my security teams, I ask them to
Mm,
surround me and to, fortify and protect and everything. And, I've noticed a dramatic decrease in I used to have all of these really gross kind of like succubus dreams a lot
mm.
where I felt like
Yeah.
siphoned and just also those spooky dreams too, where they're just like "Bleh," trying to freak you out. And I've noticed a huge decrease in
Okay.
those.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm gonna have to start doing that. It's so simple. It's just one of those things of like you have to just remember to do it before you fall asleep.
I know sometimes I just pass out and then I wake up getting chased by something in a dream and I'm like, oh, I
Mm.
forgot my security team.
Mhm.
So, but yeah. Um, well, let's ask one more question.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
And then we can kind of close out, I guess. What's Do you have any other questions?
Hmm.
Or maybe, like, just whatever they wanna tell us?
Yeah. Yeah, let's end with whatever they would like to tell us. I'll grab one of these. Mhm. Mm. I got the king, which is control reversal of fortune.
Oh, wow.
It's a very masculine energy. This is something I know, like the collective has been talking a lot about the rise of the divine feminine, which I think is absolutely happening. But there's also this obvious need for all of us, regardless of gender, to heal our masculine energy. And I don't know if it necessarily needs to be one before the other, but I do almost feel like that needs to happen before the feminine energies can fully heal and fully come forth. That it's not going to
Yeah.
be, yeah, reversal of fortune. That's making me think of like all the problems you guys are having are stemming from this, and meaning an unhealthy relationship with masculine energies,
Yep.
which is very true, very
Mhm.
poignant. And also there's a lot of shadow work involved in that, right? Because there are some people that would hear that and go, "Oh, that's those people. I'm not doing that." But like for sure we
Mhm.
are. Like it's anytime
Or,
there's
"Oh,
like
that's
a
just men," and it's like, "Oh, nope."
yeah,
Oh,
nope, not
well.
even close. Not even
Yeah.
close. There are so many relationship dynamics where it's like flip-flopped of like the woman is an unhealthy masculine, the man's an unhealthy feminine, and you come together to help each other fix that. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's just that's such a great thing to end on because that is like the call of our time right now.
It definitely is. We have, I don't know. I guess in the past, I would be like, "We have a lot of work to do," but we can flip it and be like, "Hey, the collective has a lot of work to do. Ding a ding a ding a ding," and have the
Yeah.
Mario Kart
Mhm.
song come up or whatever. I mean, I have very high hopes and I feel very optimistic.
Mhm.
I've always seen this image of like some sort of plant dying, but then like from from the goopy like kind of rotted away plant, this like little flower grows up out of it. So I feel like it's like a destruction and a birth at the same time, and it's super messy and interesting.
Yeah, it's nothing if not interesting. We picked a good
Right.
lifetime to be here.
Yeah, totally. Oh, do you want to hear a great story before we go?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. So this happened to me. This was something that happened to me the other day, and I still have no idea what to think of it. Um, I I don't even know. Maybe you can tell me after this what you think. But so I work in a group home for people with disabilities, and the other day, you know, the energies are affecting the people I take care of a lot
Mhm.
too. It's been a lot. So we were having kind of a very active day. People were having lots of behaviors, and it was incredibly stressful. And I was in the medicine closet doing documentation. I was recording some stuff, and this one resident who was in the back room laying on the couch was like, "Hi, Gina," and I feel like I have a really strong telepathic communication relationship with this resident. Like this person has come into my meditations before and
Oh,
said
nice.
things to me, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, what is that?" And they'll just during the course of the day, if I'm feeling a certain way, they'll just say something that's like, "Oh, I knew that was for me. That was from thank you. That was for that was for me."
Yeah.
And so that's happened a few times. And so anyway, I'm busy. I'm on the computer. I'm doing some stuff, and they're all, "Hey, Gina." And I was like, "Hey, bud." And they were like, and they're very low functioning, like very, very low
Mhm.
functioning. And so they're all, "Hey, Gina, I met your mom the other day." And I was like, "Oh yeah?" And I was just I was just about to say, "Oh, lucky you." And the resident said my mother's name. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Said,
Wow.
yeah, he said Terry. And I whipped my head around and I was like, "What did you say?" And he was like, "I don't know. I don't know." And I'm like, "Okay, okay." And I started shaking, and I had to go outside and like start crying because it was
Mhm.
so intense.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Oh my
I had to call a friend and be
gosh.
like, yeah, I had to call a friend and be like, "Will you please help me ground?" Because
Yeah.
I like popped out of my body and I
Yeah.
couldn't get back in.
Could not get back in.
And
Yep.
yeah, and it was just like the funny part about it is she's not passed, but she's in the stages of transition right now, and so
Mhm.
she's like out of her body a lot. And
Yep.
so I was just like, "Oh my gosh." Like it's so funny that I can have communication with like Sasquatch and UFOs and all this stuff and like see all, you know, orbs and all sorts of stuff, but then some random person says something about my mom, and that's kind of what really hit home. It was just I still don't even know what to think about it.
Yeah, well, it crosses the barrier of like no matter I mean, obviously we learn how to trust ourselves and our gifts, but there is always this voice in the back of your head that's like, but maybe I'm making it all up. And then when something like that
Mm,
happens, it's like, oh, whoa, no, this is real. As real as it can be, at least. And
mm,
it's that feeling that you described of like being out of your body. I will get that when I read for people or when I do
mm.
channelings for people and when I talk to them and it's something the course in miracles states but it's something about this energy of this is also biblical when two or more of you gather in my name meaning in a state of higher consciousness it's that feeling is like produced in and it takes you out of your body it becomes like a very non physical feeling of you're connecting in with that higher state of being and there's something really like you can have experiences by yourself, but there's something extra potent about having a shared experience with somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, I think that might be what it is, because most of my experiences have been kind of on my own. But
Mhm.
then yeah, but then also on top of that, like, there's so much, um, ba I don't wanna call it baggage, but I mean, it's a huge, it's the mother wound is still
Yeah.
a big one
Yes.
for a lot of
Mhm.
us. So it was, yeah, it was just incredible. So so weird. So
And it's
anyway,
interesting that that happened around the eclipse season too, with forgiveness being such
I
a
know.
huge theme. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
know. I know because that was on my mind a lot lately. It's this
Yep.
trying to kind of, yeah. I mean, there's so much. Ugh. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, how do you just drop it all? But you
Yeah.
don't have to drop. I mean, just setting the
No.
intention will start it.
Yes, yeah, it's a slow process. Anytime there's any sort of letting go or forgiving, it's never, "Okay, I'm gonna forgive now." It can't ever be like that. It's more of like a prayer to the universe. I'm willing, A Course in Miracles states, "I'm willing to see it differently." That's one of the things they suggest is you give your
Right.
problems to Jesus, basically just meaning like you say, I don't know what to do with this," and then you like offer it to the higher self, and the higher self
Mm,
over time helps to shift your perspective so you can see it differently. So
yeah.
it's gradual and it can't be forced. And it's, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And you can switch the word. You don't, if Jesus doesn't resonate, you
Hmm.
can just switch it with the universe or the
Yep.
multiverse or your highest light or whatever you want. Whatever resonates with you.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love
Hmm.
that. Hmm. Well, now that I've bared my soul on this video,
Yeah.
would you, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Oh gosh, parting words of wisdom. I'm too put on the spot to do any parting words of wisdom, but thank you very much.
It was a little, it was kind of a little joke. I don't
But
expect,
parting words of
anything.
wisdom. Yeah. But thank you
No.
for having me. I really appreciate it. And then for the
I love
audience,
having you on.
oh
It's
yeah,
always so fun. Of course,
good.
come on, you're my bud now. We're
Yeah.
buds.
I'm
We live in the same
secretly
state.
glad we lost the footage from last time because I was like, "Oh, I just get to do it again. That's fine."
Well, and it was fun, but like, the more we talk, I feel like the more comfy we get.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. I just love it when stuff flows. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah.
And then for the audience too, if this is something you're interested in, I do personal readings. So we'll have that linked below. And if you guys are interested, send me an email, let me know. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. She's brilliant, guys. Get a hold of her, please.
Thank you.
I'm serious. Like, she's really good. All right. I'll see you guys later. Have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.